40% of the workforce at the fifth largest company in the world is no longer human. And just 12 years ago, that number was 1,000 robots and close to 80,000 humans. But they just hit a milestone. And I'm talking about Amazon. Amazon just hit a milestone of 1 million robots working for them and 1.5 million humans. So the ratio is not just closing down, but is actually accelerating in favor for non-human workers. And we're talking about 1 million deployed active working robots. So every labor-intense company in the world would actually look up to Amazon as a blueprint worth following. So that brings us to some foundational questions, some fundamental questions that no government, no institution, no economist has fully answered. What will the world look like fundamentally when human labor is no longer driving the growth engine? We talked about Tesla's humanoids powering their manufacturing plants and the robotics that drive Ford's manufacturing facilities. So what fundamentally shifts there? When robots dramatically start outnumbering humans, what does corporate social contracts actually start looking like? So let's look at it from an employment standpoint. 180 million people work in the global warehouse and logistics industry. Both studies say that at least 36 million of these roles will fundamentally transform in the next decade. And that's before even taking into consideration humanoids that are going to be entering our factories, our restaurants and warehouses, and even construction sites. Now let's look at it from a purely economic perspective. Fundamentals of consumer spending. The bottom 60% of the US households drive 44% of consumer spending. In Europe, about 48%, and in China, it's about 53%, but it's largely in the same direction, right? The companies that are actually deploying these robots are the same companies that are relying on consumer spending. At the end of the day, consumers should buy their products, right? And that equation and that expectation will change. Now let's have a look at it from a taxation standpoint. 85% of US federal revenues comes from taxing human labor. And now robots are starting to generate the profits. And so far, robots pay nothing. No income tax, no payroll tax. In fact, the revenue architecture of any government across the world was built hoping that human work will continue forever. And now let's look at it from a pure humanity perspective. Largely for majority of people, work actually gives you a sense of purpose. The studies where more than 70% of people actually say work gives them a sense of meaning and sense of belonging. Very often unemployment correlates with loneliness because you're out of any sort of community. So work is not just economic, from a pure humanity standpoint, it's identity, it's structure, it's social belonging. So this transition is going to be massive from a humanitarian standpoint. And we're living through the most significant labor shift in the history of mankind.